Welcome to today's webinar, How to Include Kids with Special Needs in Your Church Events. We are so happy to have you guys join us, and we hope we have a lot of helpful information and tips and tools for you today as we get going. We do have that chat function that a lot of you guys have already used, so feel free to put stuff in there. But real quick, I'm Carrie. I'm part of the team here at Nathaniel's Hope, and on one side of me, I'm not sure which side you see her on, that's Marie Cook. She is our co-founder and executive director here at Nathaniel's Hope, and I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to her to get us started today.
Awesome. Thanks, Carrie. Well, don't go far away, Carrie, because you're in with me here today. But thanks for joining us. I know the interest, and I know you're joining today because you probably have kids with special needs or disabilities or unique needs, however you want to define them. But you're trying to include all kids in your ministry. So thanks for joining us today, and just to kind of maybe learn how to be more equipped to do that. And actually, hopefully, after our time together, you'll find that maybe it isn't as scary or as intimidating as you have thought it to be. And our hope is that we'll equip you today. So if it's okay, I'd like to just open up in a word of prayer. Father, thank you so much for my friends here that are watching now and are watching later, Father. And God, I pray as you've called us, God, to serve your kids, all your kids, Lord. I pray that you'd equip us, Father, that you'd equip our hearts, Father, you equip our minds, God, and you would just help us, God, to be inclusive, Father, of all the kids that you've made, Father. And thank you, God, that the body of Christ is diverse, Father, and we have opportunity, Father, to open our arms and extend that invitation to all. So be with us today and guide our conversation, we pray. And I pray when we leave our time together, Father, that each one here would be just a little bit more equipped, Father, to reach your kids. Thank you for being with us. In Jesus' name. And everyone said, amen. Okay, I saw Carrie's lip reading there. Amen. Okay, I am going to go ahead and flip over. I'm going to share my screen and get you, share my screen right here and get you over to our PowerPoint. I don't know why this is always so hard to okay, let me see here. Why it's so hard to get started, but I always have a hard time getting started. I always say I should have my own IT department follow me around wherever I go. Anyway, so today we are talking about how to include kids with special needs in your church. In case you don't know, Carrie and I are from Nathaniel's Hope, and just simply our mission is to celebrate kids with special, unique needs, and who we call our VIPs. And I'll talk to you about that in a little bit here. And to kind of all ages. So it doesn't matter if it's a young child or actually moving into adulthood, we just want to celebrate. And our goal is also as an organization is to equip you, particularly churches, just to be more welcoming in your efforts to reach all kids. So I just want to tell you a little bit about myself. I wasn't always in this space. I was actually a youth pastor for 10 years and not a mom during the time, but as God would have it, we were blessed with 3 children, and our third one, Nathaniel Timothy Cook, was born with multiple disabilities and kind of pulled us into a whole world that was very foreign to us, a world that even as I had worked with young people for many years, I look back now and I realize I wasn't equipped. And there's so much I didn't know about this community. And anyway, I wonder if I could just take a minute and just roll just a short video to tell our story, just to understand where I come from.
Hi, we're Tim and Marie Cook, Nathaniel's mom and dad, and we're here to tell you about our journey with Nathaniel.
Our journey began with our son on June 6, 1997. And our son's name was Nathaniel Timothy Cook, which actually means treasured gift from God. He was our third child. We had 2 daughters, a 3-year-old who was Ashley and a 5-year-old who was Brianna. And immediately we were thrust into caring for our little boy at Arnold Palmer Hospital.
He spent the first 89 days of his life just fighting for his life. And I remember it was such a hard, trying time to try and raise our 2 daughters while having a son, that we were fighting for his life every day.
And after 89 days, we took him home, not to a normal nursery, but actually to a small hospital room that had a heart monitor and a SAT monitor, and he was on oxygen. He was on IV. He had a feeding tube. And Marie found herself at a place of caring for him 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
We actually consider ourselves RPs, registered parents, because we had to really equip ourselves to care for a child that had multiple medical needs.
And actually caring for our son, it actually consumed our lives. It was our whole life evolved around caring for our son. I told the people I worked with at Regal Boats here in Orlando that I had these 5 F's. I have faith, family, friends, finances, and flexibility, these 5 F's. And we were barely making it. And I said at the time, I don't know how people that only have 2 F's or 3 F's, how can they possibly make it when we're barely making it with these 5 F's?
Oftentimes families are in survival mode, just taking everything it takes in you just to care for your child, just to get through the day. And so we became part of that community. It was really tough.
He had numerous surgeries in his life, actually more than 7 of them, but 3 of them were for craniosynostosis. And 2 of them we had here in Orlando, and then we took him to Dallas, Texas for a third. And the surgery went well, but he ended up getting pneumonia. And during the course of that time in the hospital, there's a nurse that's standing over our son's bed, and she's weeping. And she says, there's just something about this boy. There's just something about this boy. And as we begin to talk, we find that she's of like faith. And she says, I don't normally do this, but can I pray for you? And we said, of course, we're spiritually bankrupt, physically bankrupt, emotionally bankrupt, after just fighting for our son's life again, 11 days in Dallas. And as she prays, she didn't pray a typical prayer. She prayed that my son's purpose would be fulfilled. We thought kind of an odd prayer because he never walked or talked or ate with his mouth, but she prayed that his purpose would be fulfilled.
A year later, unexpectedly, without our permission, he had a change of address from earth to heaven when he passed away in my arms. And we realized at that point that that wasn't the end, but it was the beginning, that God wanted us to steward our whole journey with Nathaniel. Because from the time that we found out we had a child with special needs to the time that God took him home, it was a journey, an unanticipated journey, a path that we never expected.
There's a paraphrase quote by author philosopher named Soren Kierkegaard that says, we live life forward, but we understand life backwards. We live life forward, but we understand life backwards. And so we were living life forward for 4.5 years. And now, after his death, we realized that we needed to take that which we learned and apply it to life. And we realized that we needed to do that by starting a ministry to cheer on families that only have 2 F's or 3 F's. And on June 6, 2002, on Nathaniel's birthday, we dedicated a ministry called Nathaniel's Story.
Okay, so I'm going to stop right there and not make you watch another start of the video. Why do I show you that story? It's our story, but our story is only one of thousands and thousands and thousands of stories, and stories that are reflected in your churches. And as a family, when you have a child with a disability, it's often a very isolating place to be. It's a place where you have to fight, for everywhere. You have to fight school systems, you have to fight insurance companies. And so don't believe it's ever God's intention that we have to fight the church, that these families have to fight the church. So sometimes understanding kind of a journey of a family and how difficult it could be will maybe put us in a place to be more empathetic toward this community and wanting to be more helpful to include these families in. So anyway, that's our story. And as we have said, we call kids with special needs VIP kids. I hate the term disabled and handicapped because they're kids first, and we call them VIPs. And when you think about kids with disabilities and you're thinking about serving them within your church, I just want to quickly mention that disability is so unique. Could have kids with physical, cognitive, medical, hidden disabilities, chronic, life-threatening illnesses, those who are medically fragile. It's very, very wide. We may also have kids, we're beginning to look now, kids that come from hard places, kids that have gone through trauma, kids with mental health issues, kids coming out of foster care and adoption. Although in the typical terms, we may not understand that those kids have disabilities, but they do have special needs and unique needs. that oftentimes reflect what kids with disabilities have. So kind of looking at kids with unique needs and how we help them. But in any case, we call these kids VIPs because they're kids with value and incredible purpose. We don't put labels on them like that's an autistic kid. It's a kid who happens to have autism, who is a child of God, who's been created by God. So as we talk a little bit today, that's kind of what we're looking at. So it's important that you understand the kids that God is sending you, you know, because it's not just a matter of I've got my program, I've got my event, and I just want to execute this event. But it's about understanding your audience, understanding the unique needs of the kids and how they're going to integrate within whatever you're planning to do at your church. You know, every child is very unique and special, and has different ways of understanding and maybe entering into whatever you're trying to do. So let's just start looking at some activities and kind of figure out how can we become a more accommodating in our activities. And Carrie, I'm going to just invite you to chirp in here anytime you like. Here, Carrie served on staff as kids ministries for 17 years. So she doesn't look that old, but she is. And she's got a lot of wisdom as well and experience. So looking at Easter, love Easter. Easter is a great entry point for, you know, of course, for families to enter your church. And one of the great things about Easter is that it's easy to make accommodations to include kids with some unique needs. You know, first of all, let's talk about that. You can invite kids to come early. Sometimes just inviting them to come an hour earlier, half an hour earlier, before all of the other kids come and trample kids that, you know, might be a little bit more vulnerable and need a little extra support. You can invite them to do that. And by doing that, it would help a whole lot. Carrie, what about the special area?
Yeah, so we were blessed where I was at to have lots of space. So we were able to divide our egg hunt areas into age groups. And we were also able to include a VIP area with maybe different elevation levels. We'll show you in a minute some pictures of that. But VIPs could go to any of the age groups that they might have fallen into, or if they wanted to come to the VIP area where there was both grass and surface, hard surface. So if there were wheelchairs, they could easily hunt. We did that for a special area that was provided.
Yeah, so there's so when you think about the disabilities, though, every kid is different. So not every kid's going to be in a wheelchair. Some kids are going to move a little slower. Some kids might have cerebral palsy and might have difficulty running as fast as other kids to grab an egg, you know, whatever that may be. So we can know what their needs are and make some accommodations, and maybe provide a buddy, provide somebody that will be at the event and say, hey, let me kind of just go around an event with you and give you some extra help, you know, for that. Or if you have activities even within your event that you're coloring eggs, or you're doing some kind of other activities, just having somebody give them one-on-one attention would be helpful for that, whatever games
and
are happening.
assisting the family too. So that buddy helps to get them around in different places.
Because there could be multiple, they could have multiple kids as well. So, you know, mom might just not, you know, they don't just have the VIP kid, but they have siblings as well. So providing that, and that's pretty simple to do, because you're not asking a volunteer to go solo with a child. You're asking them to be with the family so they can take their cues from the family. Don't need a lot of training to be able to do that. And again, a great entry point for a volunteer, just to begin to get some exposure to a child with some unique needs like that. And as Carrie was saying, making special accommodations. So here we go. Here's for a child in a wheelchair. This is a great idea where you can put eggs a little bit higher, that they don't have to bend all the way down. Or if you have a child in a walker that can't easily go down to the ground to get eggs, you could make it a little easier for them to find them, or even, you know, make it a little bit more obvious for them to find eggs within that area. And, you know,
they also have chirping eggs too, that might make it a little easier for visually impaired VIPs to be able to find stuff.
Yeah, so there's just different things like that that you can do. Okay, so then that's kind of Easter, just to kind of get your mind going about Easter. But let's talk about Vacation Bible School and summer outreaches, because we know at during the summer, all kids want to participate in the fun activities that you're doing at your church. Again, every kid is very unique and has very unique needs. So we have to look at every child separately. So, rather than get overwhelmed and say, oh my goodness, I need to have a whole program for kids with special needs to come, just start somewhere, start with one kid, start with one day. If you know who your kids are that are in your church, you can begin having a conversation with a parent. And if your VBS is 5 days, maybe it's just like one day, I'm going to really focus in on this one day, and I'm going to really focus on adapting to this one child for that to happen. Again, you don't have to have, we've got VBS, for kids with special needs. Yes, you may be welcoming for that, but start small, just start somewhere, take one step at a time, learn about the kids ahead of time. So that's one of the things that takes the fear out of working with kids that have unique needs, is learning about them ahead of time. So it's great if you can have somebody on your team that can maybe talk to mom and get some information about their kids. If you don't have, if you don't know a lot, of course, you're bringing in new volunteers a lot of times during VPS, have somebody that's dedicated to kind of find out what are going to be some of the unique needs that this child has, and how do we prepare for them ahead of time, understanding what those needs might be. Like, this girl is in a wheelchair, which is kind of her legs. So when you're thinking about that, when you're thinking about even the structure of your Vacation Bible School, can that child get around every place that every other child can get around? Just something as easy as that. If some of your VBS is on the second floor and you don't have an elevator, how are you going to make accommodations for that child? But then every child isn't going to be in a wheelchair, so it might mean that they need other support for them. Okay, providing a buddy, providing, again, some assistance. And you're going to see a common theme that's coming through as we're talking about this: providing a buddy, providing somebody. Maybe it's a teenager, maybe it's another older kid within your ministry. Maybe it's just people coming that want to be volunteers, but giving them some extra support is going to make a difference, so that if your one teacher is trying to accommodate, or trying to teach a whole class or be with the whole class, they can get some extra attention like that. And a lot of times, if you are going to be working with a, budding somebody up like that, again, you want to be equipping them. If you're going to be giving them a child that has autism, okay, you want to sit them down, your volunteer down ahead of time, and say, hey, let's do a little study on autism, and let's talk about what this means, or here's how Johnny may communicate, if Johnny doesn't talk, but this is how Johnny can communicate. So watch for those cues. And again, it's about getting to know the kids and planning ahead, so that they're not showing up and you're not knowing, you're unequipped, but you have a little bit of equipping time to do that. Having tools available, so, having a space that you can take the kids to. Now, this is a kind of elaborate space. You don't need such an elaborate space, but having a place that if you're doing VBS, if it's, a few hours long, and maybe the activity is going to get to be a lot for the kids. There's going to be overstimulation, too much noise. There's going to be just too much activity, and they just got to pull away to somewhere quiet. Well, can you set up a room that can be kind of like the escape room, the quiet room, sometimes known as a sensory room? And by a sensory room, we mean it's just a place that you have some calming things, or things that appeal to one of your 5 senses, whether that's sight, so things with lights, lights that aren't, blinking or fluorescent or anything like that, or things that have sound, soothing sounds. Maybe you see a rocker in the picture here, maybe something with a rocking motion, a swing, just places that'll appeal to their senses, things that they can touch. Because what happens is when kids get on sensory overload, they kind of, their behavior escalates, and suddenly they explode, and you think, oh my gosh, why did this child explode? When they explode, they're just trying to tell you, hey, this is too much, So if you can plan ahead and think, I've got kids that, this might be a lot for them. So if we can have a space that they can come away to kind of regroup. And what happens is, when you put kids into a room like this and they can begin to focus on one of their senses or these sensory items, they do what happens, it'll begin to regulate them. It'll begin to bring them back down again and be able to help them acclimate back into the environment with all the other kids. It also might be an idea just to plan a break for these kids, bring them into a room like this and say, hey, we're gonna just kind of take a break, step into this, and then come out with all the other kids afterwards. Again, every child is different. Isn't that right, Carrie? So every child doesn't have the same needs. So this might be an idea
Right.
for some kids, but not necessary for everyone.
Yep. Yep, like you say, you just got to get to know the child, and the parents are the best coach. So finding out about them before they come as much as you can. Of course, as you're budding up alongside the child, you'll learn some things that you'll be able to use as you're ministering to them.
So other tools, just making sure that if mom says, man, my kid noise really gets to them, well, they might want to get some noise canceling headphones, bring those with them. If they are nonverbal, they don't speak, they might have a communication device, and again, your person who's a buddy, if they can get familiar with those things ahead of time, it's going to be a lot better for everybody. Sometimes things like weighted vests, if there's a lot of anxiety, you may have a little weighted blanket or vest that you can put on them to help calm them. But again, these are just things that may work for some kids, but not for everybody in that. And of course, this church has a whole closet full of fun things for kids to do. As Carrie said, the parents are your best coach. So it's really important to involve parents in the discussion. Sometimes in ministry, we feel like we have to have all the answers. And if we don't, we're a failure. Well, we're all learning, right? We're all learning how to just be equipped to minister to God's people. And so involving the parents in conversation, letting them know, first of all, that, hey, we want your child here, and can we work together to make this a great place for your child to be? The thing we don't want to communicate is like, we don't know how to take care of your child, therefore they're not welcome here. You may not know how to take care of their child, but we have a responsibility to learn. Are you willing to learn? If you're willing to learn, most parents will pull alongside and help you, as well as, just getting yourself equipped in other resources, maybe learning about the disability. You can also invite parents to come to a VBS and say, hey, would you mind just volunteering? Maybe not directly with their child, but maybe in close proximity. So if you need some assistance, that maybe they could be pulled into that. And it may also make the parent feel a little bit more comfortable as well, because it's hard for parents to sometimes leave their kids as well. One of the number one things we always hear in our programs is parents say, oh, my kid's too bad. They can't, I don't think you can handle them. And I don't want to put you through that. And we're like, no, we love your child. We want to learn. We're willing to learn. Help us, help equip us, to work with them. Okay, so let's move on to another special event that you might have, fall festivals. And I'll let Carrie, you can take this one.
Okay, yeah, so there's lots of opportunity for your fall festival and Italian fall outreach you did. Ours was set up, of course, we had lots of bounce houses, petting zoos, just lots of things all kids are going to want to be a part of. One of the things we found to help identify our VIP families and maybe help them go through the lines a little quicker is we had an area that they could come check in, and the family could get wristbands that our volunteers were trained to know, hey, these are VIPs. And if you see them come to your activity, let's do what we can to get them pushed through the line a little quicker, so it becomes a little easier for them to be a part. Also, this can work for Easter too, but having a place that, and there's probably a picture in here eventually, but a place that they might need a chill down time. So whether it's inside or a tent or just whatever, that the family can go and they can just relax and kind of regroup. If you have a trunk or treat, I know many churches do that. How can you decorate so it includes all kids that with all types of abilities and making it fun for them? So if you have kids maybe that can't reach or whatever, how are you including them? And this was one of our partner churches that they did as you see, a trunk or treat here, and they had a sign with what programs they offered for their VIP families. So as they're coming through, they're on purpose letting their families know, hey, you guys are welcome here. We're glad you're here, and here's some other things that we offer to you as well. So there's just lots of different ways that you can do it, and we've seen over the past few years the doing wheelchairs and getting them really into the whole dressing up kind of excitement. So those are always fun to see, and they can definitely, if you're doing a costume contest, these are a great part to just have involved in your costume contest as well.
So, so really there's a common, and as I said, this is very, very basic, but it's making accommodations at events. It's looking at an event and how can I make an accommodation? So, like all of the things we talked about so far is planning ahead, right? Thinking ahead, saying, hey, I know 1 out of 10 kids under the age of 14 have a disability. So there's going to be kids that are going to be coming to my event, how am I going to plan ahead to know when they come, or if they're already in my church, how am I going to take care of them? If they are in your church, then you need to find out the needs. That's an easy thing. That's a no-brainer. Go to the parents or have somebody on your team kind of find out what their needs are. That's just not for special events. That's for Sunday morning. That's for your regular programming, understanding the needs of the kids that God's bringing into you. Because as you know the needs, and you can help better meet the needs, and then you can make accommodations. And sometimes the accommodations are not very hard to make, depending on the needs of the child. Obviously, I know that it's so wide, so vast. If you've got a child who's a runner, who's a biter, things like that, that's a little bit more aggressive in nature, well, then your accommodations might be, hey, that quiet room is going to be really important. That space that I can take the child and take them into another place so that they don't harm other children, they can keep themselves safe, is going to be important. It's going to be important that they have a buddy, that they have somebody that can give them some extra attention like that. We're going to need to give assistance, and sometimes it's assisting the child. And if it's an event at the church, maybe it's assisting the family, like Carrie said, and just providing. But these are such basic things. It's not like brain science here. It's like so easy, providing assistance and then providing a space, somewhere where the parents can go even to take care of their kids' unique needs. So we have, Carrie, if you can cue up this video, get the video ready here. I want to just talk to you about just events that happen, providing a space. So years ago, we kind of got this idea. We were partnered with the Louise Plow organization. I don't know if you've ever been a part. Louise has gone to heaven this last year, but they do huge evangelistic crusades. And so we kind of went to them and said, we want VIP families to be able to come to these events, but they're out in big fields and it's like, it's not at a church. There's not a lot of accommodations. So like, what can we do to help? Now, this is going to look very, very basic. And when we set up a respite tent. So we came in as an organization and we said, okay, we're going to set up a tent and we're going to have like 4 walls around it. So if parents want to come with their child with disability, and maybe they're a little bit older and they need a cot to be able to lay their child down so they can change them, we're going to have just some simple accommodations. Or maybe they have a trach and they need to be suctioned out. It's like, okay, we need some electricity, and that can make a provision for the parents to be taken care of. So it's just a matter of thinking ahead so that we can include all people to whatever events we do. And you can see this is not a very fancy picture. I mean, we kept covering the cot with that was simply tablecloth roll, plastic tablecloth roll. So we'd lay the child down, then we'd cut it, and when they were done, we'd throw it away. But it's very simple. The fact that we were just thinking ahead so that we could invite these families to come made such a huge difference. Now, Carrie's going to roll a video right now. Every year we do, I guess I got to stop sharing, right? Every year we do a big event called Make 'em Smile, excuse me, here in Orlando. This is a commercial getting ready June 4th. It's our 20th anniversary. We're going to have our last event 2 years ago because we had to put a pause because of the pandemic. We had over 35,000 people, over 3,000 kids with disabilities. And so So we're doing a huge event around downtown Orlando. We've got a mile around the lake with activities, and we shut down the street. I mean, it's a big event. It's a huge event. About 450 volunteers to man it, 80 to set up overnight. But we're working so hard to accommodate this crowd, because this is all about them. It's all about for these to celebrate kids with special needs and the community coming together. So I just want to show you a video about all the things and all the ways kids can interact that have unique needs.
We're going to have an absolutely great day, and it's because of you guys and your willingness to give yourself away. You know, life's too valuable to waste it on ourselves. And so thank you for choosing this day to give yourself away so that others may be blessed, and they will be blessed. So thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you.
Can't shake them, can't make them ever fade, ever end. Am I good enough? Do I measure up? Feels like a war I can't win. But I wasn't given the spirit of fear, I was given the power of love. Everything I've been fighting against, I'm gonna lift it up. I wanna be fearless, no holding back, no backing down. Fearless, because I believe you're with me now. Bring on the unknown, lead me and I'll go. Come set me free, God, I wanna be fearless. I want to be fearless. I want to be. These mountains, these giants will fall at a single word. In your name, in your strength, I'm more than a conqueror. I wasn't given the spirit of fear, I was given the power of love. Everything I've been fighting against, I'm gonna lift it up. I wanna be fearless, no holding back, no backing down. Fearless, because I believe you're with me now. Bring on the unknown, lead me and I'll go. Come set me free, God, I wanna be fearless. I want to be fearless. I won't be afraid, I won't be afraid. I'll call on your name, I'll walk out in faith. I won't be afraid, I won't be afraid. I'll call on your name and I'll walk out in faith. I won't be afraid, I won't be afraid. I'll call on your name and I'll walk out in faith. I'm gonna be fearless, no holding back, no backing down. Fearless, because I believe you're with me now. Bring on the unknown, lead me and I'll go. You set me free, God, I'm gonna be
So as we see that, the whole purpose to show you this is that this event is created exclusively for kids and adults with disabilities, and the entire event is accessible, and it's all I mean, it's the whole community coming together, and we try to think of everything. And even at this event, we have respite tents, several respite tents. We have tents with air conditioners in them, so if people need to cool, they can go in there. But we try and just do a lot of accommodations, and really, you know, all we keep asking ourselves is, you know, what can we do? How can we make sure this community can be included? And so as you're thinking about this, I think that's the question that you have to ask, you know, as you're thinking about how do I accommodate kids into our
And also,
ministry.
as we are doing this, we're asking VIP parents. So as we talked about, parents are your best coach for their kids. They also can have some input into your events of things that might be helpful to include other VIPs.
Right. Don't be afraid to ask parents, what can we do so that your child can be a part of what we do? I mean, sometimes we, again, because we feel like we have to be the experts and we have to have the answers all together, but really we just need to have humility and come to families and just with a loving heart say, we want your child to be here, but we need help. This is kind of new for us. We want to figure out how Johnny can best be welcomed into our ministry and our event. So, but getting to know your kids is super important. You can't plan an event to include kids with special needs or make those accommodations unless you know what the needs are. And so just want to encourage you to find ways to get to know your kids, whether you spend time with the family, you talk to mom or dad, but also one of the ways that we find to be very, very effective in getting to know kids is to providing a respite care program. I'm just going to touch on this a second. And what this is respite care is like a Parents Day Out program that your church can do one day a month. 1 day a month for 3 hours. And we've actually seen people with no experience in disability to do this, but it's a Parents Day Out program. It gives kids a place to belong. It gives parents the much needed break they need. It's a great missions outreach to your community because only 10% of people with disabilities attend church, which is really very humbling when you think about that. Only 10% of families impacted by disability attend church. So it's a great missions opportunity, but it's a great way to train volunteers because you have 3 hours for your volunteers to get to know kids, to get to know how to communicate with them, how get to know their likes, their dislikes, just being with them, and they have a chance to fail. Like, they can chase the kid with autism for 3 hours and then figure out, okay, this is what I need to do, or this is what's triggering them. Very hard to do on a Sunday morning when you have a lot going on. So anyway, so we help churches start respite programs.
And I'll say I did that when I was on staff at my church, and I was able to tap into these volunteers that a lot of them had no experience, but they wanted to get involved and they got trained, they got comfortable. So I was able to tap on their shoulder for Sunday services, but also for these special events to come out and be buddies to families.
Yeah, it's really cool. So there's like a ripple effect for that. So as you're thinking about being more intentional, first thing is just pray, ask God to give you the heart to want to welcome kids in. And obviously you're on this because you are wanting to know more, but also that God would also bring in people within your congregation that are ready to step out and to be welcoming and to be used in that way. But pray God sends the kids and the families that he wants to be with you. As I said earlier, it's okay to not have it all together. Don't be perfect. Just start somewhere. Start with one child and begin to meet their needs. And when the next child comes, begin to meet their needs one by one, whether that's Sunday morning or that's special events. Just start to do that one by one, but just start somewhere. And, we want to be a resource for you. Part of this is every month we offer free webinars. I think our next webinar we're going to be doing is we're going to be dealing with mental health issues with kids in the church. And you'll be getting an email about that. But we also send out monthly tips. And so just giving you little bite-sized pieces about how to just be more welcoming for kids with special needs. We've got a birthday club. So again, all these things are free. So our birthday club, if you have kids in your congregation, you can invite them to go to nathanielshope.org. We'll send them little bears. We'll send them birthday cards, remembering kids that sometimes get forgotten, but we want to encourage you not to forget these kids as well and give them a little extra love as well. For kids who've gone to heaven, we have the Hall of Hope. It's a place to remember kids who've gone to heaven. And also it's we send cards on the child's birthday and their homegoing date to families. We're rolling out a new program called Nathaniel's Neighbor. It's in pilot stage right now, teaching us how to be a good neighbor like Mr. Rogers did by giving help and bringing hope. And if you're interested to know more, let us know. And maybe you'd like to jump in on the pilot with us for that. But we want to kind of do some wraparound care with these families. We've got a book here. In fact, we can give that away, Carrie. Carrie's going to give a couple prizes away here today. So we'll give Hope Lives is a story of Nathaniel told from his perspective about what it's like being a child with a disability and giving you some pointers on how to walk that journey with a child like Nathaniel and the family. And we got little magnets as well to represent kids with special needs. But just want to remind you again that we are passionate about teaching you how to give parents a break, just like, Kit Kat bar. Why it's like, why do I have a Kit Kat bar there? I always think about that song, Give Me a Break, Give Me a Break, Give Me a Piece of That Kit Kat bar. I started too low there, but parents need a break. And every time you see a Kit Kat bar, remember to pray for families that need a break. And then think about starting a buddy break where we partner with you to bring special needs ministry, respite care ministry to your church. And we do all of our training online. It's actually 6 hours, but if you become a partner with us, it's on demand. So would like to know more about that. So we have options, short-term and longer-term options for you if you want to jump in. So anyway, I'm going to stop there. And Carrie, I'm going to toss it to you.
All right, so we're going to give away a couple things. In the meantime, if you have some questions, go ahead and put those in the chat now, and we have some time. We'll go ahead and answer those. But Marie just mentioned that Hope Lives book. Do you have one there to show?
I have one. I always have a book around.
This is a great book. So we'll go ahead and give that away. If you are living in the US, we can ship that to you. So I'm going to go ahead, and I have a little wheel of names to spin. I tried to get everyone on here that's in
This
here.
is so cool.
hopefully-
It's like a spinning wheel. I really can't see it.
we
Are you
got
gonna show
it.
to them? Yeah, look at this. Your
Okay.
name is on
So
there.
here we go.
Here we go. Let's see who's gonna win. Woo. So for the people that are watching this recorded, sorry, join us live next time and you may win. You may be a winner. It is Claire. Where's Claire?
Claire, are
from?
you still here with us? If you are,
Claire's from Hamilton, Ohio. Yay, she's the
Yay,
English
you are.
import.
Okay, awesome. We'll get your information to send you that book. I'm writing it down so I remember.
So
And
while
you
you're
were
getting
asking
ready,
a question.
I was gonna say that.
We'll get to those in just a minute. And then Marie also mentioned our Buddy Break Basic Leadership Training, BLT. So we have an option for churches to join for $49, and we want to give away one of those admissions or registration to
So
upcoming training. So
They get to be 6 hours with us online. That is like an awesome experience.
it is. Everybody wants to be a part of that. So,
But so
okay,
in 6 hours though, you can basically learn how to do respite care, and then, we have all the tools and pieces to go along with it. But who's going to be the winner, Carrie?
let me get this up.
And then we'll answer the questions here. So I see some questions coming up here, so we'll answer those as well here.
Right, here we go.
Carrie just likes to play with this spinning wheel.
It is a fun little thing. So let's see. Martha, are you still with us? If you are,
Yay,
you are
Martha.
the winner. Let us know in the chat, Martha. And if you are still with us, we'll go ahead and get you information on there. This is another one of the benefits of staying with us the whole time, because you can win some great prizes.
Martha's there. Good job, Martha. Okay,
All
so
right, so let's
we have
look at some of these questions. Let me, okay.
So I
Sorry,
guess this is a
scrolled up too
question.
high.
More of a comment. Having worked and served as a foster mom and new in this ministry, these very ideas have been swirling my brain for our angel class. So this is an answer to prayer. Oh, great, Olivia. Great that that's helpful to you today. Have
So
you partnered?
Guillermo, you
Oh,
got
sorry,
it.
go ahead.
Guillermo says, I'm a pastor. A few months ago, we received a family with a kid with autism. We are trying to make a children ministry with accommodations, starting with him. Need some recommendations. We have some space. We don't want to put alone
Put them
because I want
alone.
kids. Yeah, put them alone. So, a recommendation is really talking with the parents outside of service time. And most kids receive with their schooling an IEP, which is an individualized education plan, so this is things that they're putting in place to school to help them succeed. So maybe the parent can share that with you outside of service time, because service time is always crazy to have these conversations. And then you can sit with them and say, okay, this is what they're doing. How can we do some of this at church? Not that you're therapy or teacher, like educational or that, but those tips or things that they're doing might help you as you're doing that. And then don't be afraid to, we want to include VIPs in our services, but sometimes things might be a little too overwhelming. So it's okay if they have a buddy that they come and have to step out for a while. Maybe that's when they go to a sensory room or a different room for a little bit, just to regroup and be able to rejoin again.
Right. I appreciate that you don't want to separate them, because I would say most families, and we would be under the opinion that that you should try and include the children with all the other kids. It's like you don't want to cut off the body of Christ, right? Just like you're cutting off the hand or the elbow or the nose or something when you put the kids on a side. So as much as you're able to include the kids with everything, if you have a buddy system, then you can do that. There are times when kids, for safety reasons, you might have to have them in a separate room, but just to have them in a separate room because they have a special need isn't, really what we want to encourage. So, as Carrie said, get with the mom, talk with her, and figure out, what they're able to participate in with all the kids, and then what accommodations could be made for that. And if you have any other additional questions, please, reach out to us, and we'll be happy to talk with you further about that. And then have you partnered with any local schools, and how has that worked? We have a great relationship with some of our local schools and thinks this would work well. Yes, that is a great question. Every church is different as far as your ability to partner with outside schools or sources, but we have seen it to be a great opportunity, because kids need community service hours, if this is what you're talking about, for them to be volunteers. We had a church down in South Florida that was basically a snowbird church. My husband and I spoke there. Probably 80% of the people were gray haired, but they wanted to do a respite program. And so they said, we want to be the church. If this can work anywhere, it can work. Well, what happened was they started with 3 kids, but it was basically 60 senior citizens that came forward to say, we want to take care of kids and give parents a break. But they partnered with a local high school football team. And so these football players could run and chase after the kids, but the seniors had the great wisdom. So there was a great intergenerational opportunity for ministry to work together, and that worked well. But sometimes just, you don't need to have the older folks with the younger folks, teenagers. It's a great opportunity to give them hands-on experience and learn how to relate and to be in friendship with somebody that may have been a little bit intimidating or they never had a chance to engage with like that. So it's great.
Let's see, I see Jen was asked or saying they're doing a panel training for their volunteers with a parent or specialist to address each of the 5 areas: 1, physical disabilities; 2, emotional behavioral needs; 3, children in grief and trauma; 4, kids with neurodivergent spectrum disorders, developmental disorders, a little training, and then opening up for Q&A to help bring better understanding and awareness of the needs. That's awesome, Jen. That's great that you guys are doing that.
Then goes on to,
go ahead.
I said, does your organization have suggestions on how we can minister to parents who are overwhelmed and feeling isolated and alone? As we minister to the children, we are finding the pain of rejection and lack of understanding has caused a lot of pain. Oh, Olivia, you are so accurate in saying that. And again, I would have to go back and say respite care is a great way to minister to needs of the families, because you're giving the kids a place to belong, where they find community, where they're getting a one-on-one friend. They're playing with other kids. It's just a setting that's very conducive, for them. It's all about them, and it gives them a place to belong. And while the respite program is going on, you can run simultaneously a parent group alongside, where parents can find fellowship and they can find support with one another. We've had churches before where the pastor's offices, they've opened up their office, and even staff has sat and visited with families during that time, where they've provided special events or outings or just opportunities for parents to come together. So I think, again, a respite program is a great way to rally around and to offer that support. And I think, but even in the interim, if you're not quite ready to start a program like that, I think reaching out to the parents one-on-one, letting them know you care, texting them, just calling, saying, how are you doing? And reminding them that they're loved and they're not alone, but the community is important, because we all need community within the body of Christ.
Yeah. And Brandon is asking if Buddy Break has to be at a church. Yeah, so we partner with churches to do Buddy Break because we feel, Jesus is the answer. So we want to connect families to him, and this is just another way to do this. As we said before, I was part of my church there and doing Buddy Break, and we just had so many people that would have never darkened church doors before. Jehovah's Witness, Buddhist, all kinds of people coming, but we were able to share Christ with them and walk that road with them. So it's a great outreach opportunity as well.
Yeah, our goal is to bring Christ to families, the hope of Christ. Without the hope of Christ, I can tell you I would not be sitting here having lost a child and gone through our whole journey so everything we do is grounded in bringing the hope of Christ to families. And so we can't do that without the church and the continuing effort of the church. And plus we want to equip the church. We want the church to be the church. And this is a great tool for the church to be the church.
Mhm.
So
Well, I know we still have questions coming through, but if you need to go, please feel free to do that. We'll still keep answering your questions as you have them, but if you need to go, thank you for joining us. But like I said, I do see some more questions coming through. Feel free to put those in there as well. So Jen is asking, do you have any suggestions regarding recruiting volunteers? We can't have just anyone work with our kids. They have to apply, go through a background check, and have been attending our church for 6 months. It's important, but can be preventative to having bigger events with lots of volunteers.
So again, you have to have a way to recruit volunteers. We have found that when you say, hey, we have kids with special needs on Sunday morning that we need people to work with, a lot of people that scares them, it intimidates them, and they're afraid to come forward. Again, I keep going back to respite. Having a respite program is a great way to include, to invite people in to say, once a month, would you come play with kids? We're going to train you because we give you training to train your volunteers, and you can get comfortable. You're actually helping the families, but it's a great recruiting tool. We've seen top level executives, senior citizens, high school students, families coming together to work together, even families within, family with all age groups coming together as a family to work. It's a great way because it gives them a purpose, it gives them something that they can wrap their hands around. I guess other entry points would be when you have special events, if Easter's coming up and you're doing the Easter egg hunt, just go ahead and recruit and say, hey, we need some help for some kids that have some disabilities. We need some extra buddies and help. Would you, and I think always when you tell the story and you explain the family, because a lot of people don't realize that. That's one reason why I showed our story at the beginning. We don't realize what a family's journey is like without being, kind of seeing past the facade. Because on Sunday mornings, you see people and everything looks okay. And, you may see behavior that comes out but typically, we have our face on, but there's a lot more that families face that you don't see, and you don't know the hardships that families have in their lives. So sharing that, and even having somebody in your, if your pastor can weave in a sermon, a story of a family that's in your church to help educate them about what life is like with a disability, how that impacts a family, that can be very helpful in recruiting as well. Having your senior leadership on board with you is kind of important. So if you're on here and you don't have a supportive senior leadership, I would work really hard to help educate their hearts about, families that are impacted by disability at all age levels.
All right, so Connie said, I'm looking for ways to educate my teachers to learn how to care and love children that need a little extra care instead of them standing in the corner because they don't know how to help. So we really recommend having a buddy because, your teacher is having to make sure everyone in that room is taken care of. And when somebody might need a little extra help, it's hard for them to have to maybe stop what they're teaching or the activity to do things. So if you can get a buddy for those that need that additional assistance, that buddy can focus on them and keeping them involved. If, as we mentioned earlier, if there's sensory overload or something, can bring them out so they can regroup. So having that extra person in the room that can focus on that VIP is what's really going to make it a successful and happy time for your teacher, so they won't get frustrated, for your VIP, and for that buddy, that they have that relationship that they're building with the VIP as well.
And I would also say that if there's specific instances, if there's specific kids, and depending on your parents, and I don't know what the needs of the children are, you know, what their special need is, but if your parent would come in and maybe tell their story to the teachers, or if there's a certain type of disability that that child may have, and you can bring education. So say they have autism, maybe you can do a little volunteer training on autism, you know, because sometimes people don't know what to do. They need a little extra love and care, but it can be very intimidating for a person who's never maybe dealt in this realm before. And it doesn't have to be scary, but we do have to take the fear out of them to help them with it. So helping take that fear out, you know, and giving them, people are afraid of what they don't know. So if we can help them understand, why is a child acting like this? Have they gone through trauma? You know, are they, are they just, is this exhibition of this, or, you know, are they, do they have anxiety? I mean, what is it? If we can help them understand why a child, there's always reasons why children behave the way they do. They don't just come in a corner because they want to do that necessarily, but they're trying to communicate something. So as you can bring education to your teachers, you know, it's probably one-on-one. If this is specific child is like this, and maybe talk to the parent and find out more information, and try and educate your teachers. And if your parent could talk, I mean, that's even greater as well, if that could happen. So
Frida, I am not sure if I am getting your question.
is she talking about the boy behind me, maybe? Say the
How
voice.
do you acquire one of your buddies stand up, and any items we can have? Is that what you're referring to? Is the boy back there? If so, and I have one back over here too, that is part of our Buddy Break kit. So when churches start Buddy Break, they will have one that they have as part of their
But
church.
these are for cars, and they're all over the country on cars. And we actually have a store at nathanielshope.org/store. Is that what it is, Carrie? We have different items like that on there that are available. But the boys behind us are part of a kit for the respite program.
Johanna is saying, do you provide on-site training for volunteers that are working with the kids?
So we do more of our training online, only because it's cost effective to do that. I mean, if you're in Orlando, if you're closer to us, we could talk about that a little bit, but because of our resources, we do most of our training online like this, and we'd be happy to do a training even for your church by Zoom, if that would be helpful, depending on what you're looking for. So you can contact us if you are interested in that.
A little testimony there from Olivia. As a respite receiver, when we were foster parents of up to 4 to 5 traumatized children, allowed my husband and I to reinvest in our marriage and be refreshed. It was an amazing blessing for us as foster parents. Parents of VIP kids need to reinvest in their marriage, family, to be renewed and refreshed for sure.
Yeah,
Definitely.
Olivia, we can't tell you how many parents, when they come to a respite program, sometimes it's the first time they've ever had a break. I mean, that may sound crazy, but 5 years, 10 years, 13 years, they've never been able to be away. And so many marriages, that's why we have such a high marriage failure rate, because your attention is on the kids and focusing on the kids. So we're not able to build our marital relationships up. And if you don't do that, if you don't feed, it's not going to grow. And so you're right. So thank you for that reminder to all of us. Yes. And we can keep going on here, Carrie.
Yeah.
But I think the questions are over now.
Yes. Thank you so much for joining us today. We hope that you found some great tools and tips through this webinar. And if you have any questions about Buddy Break coming up, feel free to reach out. We'll send you some information. And for those that didn't get the book, we'll also send you a coupon code to get a discount on the book if you would like to get it as well. So thanks for being a part, and we look forward to being in touch soon, and we'll let you know about our next webinar that's coming up. So yeah, you have a great week.
God bless you.
Bye.